Breathless. Forbidden, Book 2. Written by Susanna Thompson. Narrated by Lauren Sweet. Chapter 7. I fell asleep completely sated as Cade's girlfriend. I had actually screamed from the intensity of the orgasm that he had made me beg for, but he had made me come again later that night. Waking up in the morning with him brought a content smile to my face. I watched him sleep for a moment after I slipped out of bed. He was awake when I emerged from the bathroom. "Good morning, girlfriend." He greeted me with a smirk. "Good morning, boyfriend," I teased him back. He smiled happily. "We're finally together." "Yeah," I agreed, smiling back at him. "Will you go out to dinner with me now?" he asked. I think it's time for breakfast." "I meant now that you're my girlfriend. I want to take you out on a date," he declared as he got out of bed. "First, we'll go to breakfast. Then we'll come back here so I can ravish you again before we have to check out of the room." Amazingly, the thought of it got me excited again. I had never craved sex before, but I seemed to be insatiable with Cade. "Maybe I'll ravish you," I replied as my eyes traveled down his naked body. "If you keep looking at me that way, we'll never leave this room," he warned. "In fact, I think we'll order room service so we don't have to get dressed. We'll just put on robes to answer the door." "That's a good idea," I told him. "I can take a shower before breakfast gets here." You in the shower. I have some fantasies about that. Let's eat breakfast first, because I don't want to miss out on that." I rolled my eyes at him, but I was not at all opposed to having him join me in the shower. I had my own fantasies about that, and the thought of fulfilling them kept my libido fired up while we ate breakfast dressed only in the robes the hotel had provided. There was also something sexy about being covered up, yet naked underneath that cloth, held together by only a sash. All it would take to be exposed was untying the belt. Cade's thoughts had certainly strayed in that direction because he pulled me down to sit on his lap when I stood up with the intention of going into the shower. His hand slipped inside my robe to cut my breasts. "Easy access," he commented. "I like it." He tweaked my nipples before moving his hands down to where the robe gaped open between my legs. "The shower," I panted when he began to stroke me. "After you come," he promised. I leaned my head back against his shoulder and succumbed to the pleasure he was giving me. It felt so good that I wanted to prolong it, but Cade kept up a relentless pressure that brought my orgasm upon me quickly. No sooner had I cried out at the peak of my climax, and he was turning my head to kiss me hungrily. He untied my sash to fully open my robe and grasp my breasts again. "I'm going to fuck you in the shower," he said in a passion-roughened voice. He suddenly yanked my robe off my shoulders, and I stood up to help him remove it. When I stepped forward, he came up behind me and pulled me back against him. "I want you now, like this," he rasped in my ear. Before I knew what was happening, he was lifting me and carrying me to the bed. He set me down on my stomach and discarded his robe before climbing up on the bed behind me and grabbing my hips to thrust into me. I had never had sex in this position before, and I gasped at the feeling of deep penetration. Incredibly, the pleasure began to intensify within me again as he kept hitting just the right spot, and I began to moan with every thrust. My orgasm was so powerful that my whole body shook with the force of it, and I was barely aware of Cade following me into climax immediately afterwards. We were both panting with the effort of catching our breaths, and Cade still had my hips in a tight grip until he recovered enough to stand up and dispose of the condom. I rolled over onto my back, and he sprawled beside me for a moment before turning onto his side to cuddle with me. We lay there lazily, both of us completely spent. I had never felt so satisfied and content in my life as I did in that moment. Cade gave me a rueful smile. Sorry about the shower. No, don't apologize. That was amazing. Oh, wow, I gushed. I feel so good. He smiled at me in genuine happiness before his lips curved into a smirk. So, I'm amazing, huh? I was too much in a state of bliss to roll my eyes at him. Yes, I replied enthusiastically. He laughed. Okay, now I know how to get you to agree with everything I say. Mm, I responded, luxuriating in the satisfaction of my body. I could stay here all day, but I guess I better get in the shower and get dressed before we have to check out. I'll join you in the shower next time, he promised. He wore me out, woman, he admonished me playfully. He'd worn me out too with the marathon sex sessions of these past 2 nights. I'd already had more sex with Cade than I'd had with Lucas, and I'd climaxed more times in a shorter amount of time than ever before in my life. My libido was well and truly sated. With the haze of lust cleared from my mind, my thoughts turned to my new relationship status with Cade while I took my shower. I'd given in to his insistence that I become his girlfriend, but the truth was that I hadn't fought him very hard on it. One night with him hadn't been enough for me, and there was no use in continuing to deny it. We certainly had a strong physical connection, but now we were trying the more complicated connection of a romantic relationship again. My post-coital bliss had me feeling optimistic about it as I emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a towel. Cade had been watching TV, and he now got up to take his own shower. I searched around the room for my undies before I remembered that they were in my purse. Remembering my wild behavior from the previous night was a bit embarrassing in the light of day, and I got more embarrassed the more I thought about it, especially when I recalled how much I had moaned and whimpered and begged for Cade to make me come. I would have been completely mortified to ever face him again after that if he hadn't asked me to be his girlfriend. I was also glad that I had worn a simple A-line dress that could transition into day without making it obvious that I was wearing last night's clothes. Belatedly, I wondered if anyone in the surrounding rooms had heard us having sex, and that thought had me ready to hang my head in shame as we left the room. Fortunately, there was no one in the hallway, and I rushed toward the elevator to stab at the button in my hurry to escape unseen. Why are you suddenly acting like the building's on fire? Cade asked as I paced back and forth between the two elevators. We were very loud, I said quietly. I hope no one heard us. I hope they did, he countered. They've got to be so jealous of us. One of the elevators dinged, and I scrambled for it, only to stop short when the doors opened to reveal an elderly couple waiting to get off on our floor. My face heated in shame at the thought that they might have heard us last night, and I dropped my eyes to the floor as they walked past us. Cade was laughing at me as we got on the now empty elevator. You're being way too paranoid. Even if someone did hear us, they don't care. Do you think that we were the only people having sex in this hotel last night? I'm going to be quiet next time, I vowed. Cade's dark eyes glinted dangerously. You can certainly try. My stomach dipped at the sensual promise in his voice and gaze. Contrary to what I had expected, having sex appeared to have intensified the sexual attraction between us rather than diminishing it. Cade's effect on me was now so potent that a few words and a look from him were enough to excite me, and my libido flared back to life at the naughty intent he had just conveyed to me. Getting a call from my mom was like a cold shower. I placed my finger over my mouth in a gesture to Cade to be quiet before I answered my phone. Hey, Mom. How are you? We're good. How are you, Lexie? How was your first week of classes? It was good, I replied, hoping that my sudden guilt and anxiety wasn't discernible in my voice. A week. It had only been a week, and I had already slept with Cade. Do you like your classes? She asked. Which one is your favorite? I don't know yet, I answered. They're all good. How has your weekend been so far? She questioned. What are you doing today? Not much. Just relaxing. We were out in the parking garage now, and I was anxious to get off the phone before my mom somehow discovered that I was with Cade. At least he had remained silent by my side. With your roommate? Mom inquired. What was her name again? Katie, I said. No, she's not here right now, but, I have to go to the bathroom, so could I call you back later? Oh, sure, she agreed. You haven't been drinking, have you? Are you hungover? No, I assured her. I just have to pee. I'll call you later, Mom. Okay, she said, and I hung up before she could say anything else. You know you're an adult now, Cade commented dryly. You don't have to sneak around with me behind her back. You know we can't tell them, I replied. Why not? What are they going to do? It's not like my dad can threaten me with military school anymore. I stared at him, momentarily at a complete loss for words. But remember when we talked before about how we could be together in college? And now we are, he declared. But we still can't tell them, I exclaimed. Why not? He demanded. They'll be upset, Cade. You know they will. I don't care, he stated obstinately. They can't stop us now that we're adults. Besides, your mom will come around at least. She's a romantic. You did read her diaries, I accused. It's so unfair that you've read them and I haven't. You live in the same house, he pointed out. You couldn't find a way to sneak into her room and read them? That's invasion of privacy, Cade. You can't just do whatever you want like that. My argument didn't make a dent in his privileged mind. All's fair in love and war. And which one was stealing my mom's diaries? I asked in irritation. Borrowed, he corrected me. They were returned, and it was war until I found out that she was really in love with my dad. War, I snapped as I glared at him. Against my mom. What were you planning to do with her diaries? Show them to my dad, he answered, but she turned out not to be a gold digger. He added with a look of amazement. She's even got a soft spot for me, even after you told her I called her that. She's quite a lady, he stated with respect. I was torn between outrage and basking in his praise of my mom. Before I could form a response, he added something that made my blood boil. What she wrote proved to me that she didn't get pregnant on purpose to trap my dad, and that you didn't plan that seduction to get me kicked out of the house. It's the reason that I waited for you, Lexie, because I knew I'd never find another girl like you. He tried to embrace me, but I stepped back out of his reach. The only reason, I ground out. The only reason, I emphasized again, that you finally believed me is because you read the truth in my mom's diaries. So if you hadn't stolen her diaries, you would have never cared to get back together with me. Also, for your information, asshole, Jenna wasn't trying to trap you either, so she was a girl like me. That's what she told you, Lexie, but you don't know that for sure. No, I retorted sarcastically. I guess you don't know anything for sure unless you read it in someone's private diary. Maybe you should go break into Jenna's house and see if she has one. I have no interest in Jenna, he retorted. Why are you even bringing her up now anyway? She has nothing to do with us. She was your girlfriend, and you dumped her like she meant nothing to you, just like you dumped me. Those were completely different circumstances, he snapped angrily. And I've apologized repeatedly for the way I treated you. I'm trying to make it up to you now. I don't know what else I can do. You can take a taxi home, I told him as I opened the driver's side door of my car. I want to be alone right now. Seriously? You're just gonna leave me here? He complained. Why? What did I do? Everything was fine until your mom called. We don't have to tell her about us if you don't want to. There is no us. This was a mistake, I said as I sat down in my car. He grabbed a hold of the door as I tried to slam it shut. Bullshit. You could have tried to feed me that if it was only once, but not when you came back for more. Not when you said yes to being my girlfriend. You said yes to being my boyfriend once too, but that didn't stop you from dumping me. I guess the shoe's on the other foot now. His eyes narrowed at me with intimidating intensity. Are you saying you did this for revenge? It had been nothing of the sort, but in my anger, I took the opportunity he had just presented to me. Don't feel bad, Cade. You were so good that I thought you were a pro. I managed to give him a cold smile before yanking the door out of his hand and slamming it shut. I remained acutely aware of his glowering presence as I backed out of the parking spot, but I refrained from glancing at him before I drove away. My emotions were a jumbled mess, and I was no longer sure how I felt.